Hi, everyone. It's Mike Miller, along with the owner of Attain Technology, Bob Paradise. Today, we're going to be discussing uh, a very important topic, really asking the question, how vulnerable are you to a cyber attack? Um, this webinar accompanies our guide that we've created and our quiz uh, that are named essentially the same thing. Are you vulnerable to a cyber attack? And these this webinar, the guide, and the quiz, they all help you identify the points where you're weak and where you need to strengthen so that you're not vulnerable to a cyber attack and hackers can't access your network and get access to your data and then hold you for ransom. So really, I'm going to ask Bob some questions that I've been getting and really find out from the expert, what we can do and where you need to look and focus your attention on in order to protect yourself. So Bob, really one of the questions I get asked a lot is, why do I have to train my employees? Why are the employees so important in training employees in phishing especially? Why is that so important?
Thank you, Mike. Great question. First of all, let me take a second to explain this contraption on me. I apologize. I broke my scapula while sailing. I fell down the companionway of my boat. So unfortunately, this is a necessary rig for this week. Hopefully in a couple of weeks, I'll be out of it. So anyways, to get to your question, why do we need to train our employees? Well, 80% of cyber attacks begin with either a phishing email or some type of exploit that hits the end user, some social media exploit or something. So training your end users is probably your biggest defense and your cheapest defense as well. It's cost very little except for time to train your employees on IT cybersecurity. And there's many programs out there. I could list 100 of them that can give you the tools to train your employees pretty quickly. And then on top of that, we can also test your employees to make sure that the training stuck and send them back for retraining. And what that does is it reinforces it to make sure that your end users have security in the top of their mind. And when they have security in the top of their mind, they're going to prevent probably 80% of the attacks. So you've lessened your exposure, right? It's sort of like a house alarm, right? If you live in Boston, you're going to make sure your doors are locked and your house is alarmed, right? And you're going to educate yourself on what you need to do in that area. Oh, I need to put a lock on the window, right? Well, if you lived in the country in the middle of nowhere and your closest neighbor was 5 miles away, you'd probably leave the keys in your car and your house unlocked and all the windows open and you don't care. And really because you've educated yourself on the area. And that's really what we're doing. We're educating ourselves on the area, if that helps.
Yeah, okay. So how often do you think how robust of the training does it need to be, or the education that you give your employees? And how often do they need to be trained? Is it something that has to be recurring?
Yes, so you should train your employees minimum once a year.
Okay.
And we recommend, so for our clients, we recommend a minimum of once a year training. And then I offer to come in at least once additional per year, do like a pizza lunch and learn for their employees. And that's more of a general conversation type about cybersecurity. I get questions and I answer those questions and I give them what I see in the current industry today. And then, we also supplement that by testing.
Okay. So moving on, one of the things that is important that everyone talks about is antivirus. Now, what I know about antivirus is that, the ones that you get from Office Depot, they basically, if you put it on your computer slows to a crawl and you can't do anything, right? So, and then half the time you still get viruses. So what's the deal with antivirus? I mean, is it important to have it on your computer? And is there an antivirus that actually works?
So that's a great question, Mike. And let me start by, there's no one thing that we're going to do today or recommend today. That's the solution end all be all. If you have antivirus on your computer, that's not the permanent solution. That's sort of like a piece to the puzzle, right? And we're assembling a security puzzle for your company. And that could be 10, 15, 20 pieces to make sure that we plug all of those holes, right? Think about every time you place one of those puzzle pieces, you plug in a hole. Sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen.
No problem.
So you plug in a hole, and what we do with that piece with the antivirus is that we want to make sure that we're on the most latest and greatest antivirus software. We use a next gen product, and next gen is artificial intelligence. So what they do is it's machine learning. So it learns from itself. It looks it has the one we use is called Silence. And we use it because it's very well known and has excellent support. And it has an MDR. So basically it's monitored and managed on the backside. And that's critically important as well, but we'll get into that. So what we do is we watch, the machine learning watches what happens. It finds an attack, and then it updates itself and sees the behavior on the machine. Then it starts looking for that behavior on different machines. So it's always self-learning, right?
Oh, okay. So it doesn't use like a list of files or a list of viruses that it checks one at a time that say, does this look like this virus? Does this look like this virus? It actually is like watching the computer to see what looks suspicious or what activity is suspect.
It's not just looking for activity, but it's monitoring a machine for certain behaviors, certain data paths, certain things that this data goes here or this program starts up this. It's looking for all of those different behaviors and putting a big picture together. And it also looks at what your machine does on a regular basis, right? So the machine learning will look at what your machine does on a regular basis. When it sees something out of character, it gives itself extra scrutiny, and then it starts watching closer. And then it might even pop back to the MDR saying, hey, take a look at this. We found some suspect behavior. And the MDR, tech in the NOC takes a look at it and says, nope, we've seen that behavior before, and we allow it. Or it says, oh no, we should look at this more. So it's really taking antivirus to the next level, making it interactive as well as self-learning, right? Because the old antiviruses used to just go up and look at a list. Is this vulnerability on the list? Yes, block it. No, let it go. Well, the problem is that there's so many zero-day vulnerabilities, right? And what a zero-day vulnerability is a vulnerability that hasn't been discovered yet, right? So if it's a zero-day vulnerability, it'll never be on a list. But the behavior that computer experiences might be that computer experiences might have been seen before by a different piece of software, right? Or we know that this is a common hacker. Let's raise the threat level of that and have it looked at. So those are the things that we need to look at.
Okay. And does this antivirus slow your computer down?
Well, actually less so than the list ones, because the list ones have to chug through this massive list and go through. Usually we see a performance increase when we remove a traditional antivirus and put these antiviruses on.
Okay, excellent. So you put out an article and you showed a graphic of passwords, right? And it said, like, if you had a 2-character password, hackers would instantly be able to break into your computer, right? So, but if you had like a 9-character password and you used letters and numbers and special characters, it could take 5 years, I think it was. So what is it about passwords? Do you have to have a strong password? Is there ways to protect your computer without like a really complex password that you'll never remember? And how do you remember, Pat? I know that's a lot of questions all at once, but But really, how important are strong passwords?
So, that's another great question, Mike. And the reason I say that is because it's not just about the password, right? It's about several things. First of all, the password length, I recommend at least 8 characters minimum. But you need some other things in there to help prevent that timing. So you were talking about how long it takes to hack a password in 2 characters instantly, right? But if you add a password policy so that every time there's 5 attempts at the password and your account locks out for 15 minutes, well, that exponentially increases your odds of not getting hacked that way, because the hackers will employ a bot to hack your computer password, right? And that bot is just a computer running thousands of passwords against that computer to try to figure out what that password is. However, if you put that lock in, the bot can try 5 passwords, then it stops for 15 minutes, and then it tries 5 more passwords, then stops for 15 minutes, and it goes through that cycle. So that time ends up being years or centuries as opposed to minutes, right? And the other thing is that I recommend that you have 1 password for every site or every application that you use. And I find that myself, I use passphrases, right? Like, I'll give you an example. I love to do webinars, and I make the number 2, do webinars, and I put some special characters, some asterisk, exclamation point, a dash, sometimes a space as a special character. Spaces are great. And what that does is it allows me to remember them, right? But also makes them complex. But you shouldn't do anything like with your children's name or place you work, anything that can be publicly associated with you. If you can go on Facebook and see it, they're going to use those to hack you anyway. So those are the couple things that you could do. There's also MFA, multi-factor authentication, that we can add to your passwords to allow you to not only have to put in your password, but now you have to put in a 6-digit code that you would get to your cell phone, right? So you get the 6-digit code on your cell phone, and now that's even more secure. And what's even better is we use a product called Duo, and those push to you. So they come up on your cell phone, so you know somebody's trying to log into your account. And if you didn't initiate that, now you have noticed that somebody's trying to log into your account. So there's many ways to help prevent someone from hacking you from a password standpoint. And those are just a few.
Okay. Very interesting. So we don't need passwords like the numeral 1, hashtag, exclamation point, small z, capital S. We don't need that. We can use like 2 random words meshed together with a special character, something like that.
You should always have at least 8 characters. I recommend more. I typically use about 16 to 20, somewhere in there. But I use a phrase, right? So I'll use 5 or 6 words with exclamation points and special characters. And it should have at least 1 capital, 1 lowercase, 1 number, and a special character. So even if you keep that in mind, and it's pretty easy. I love to garden, right? Or I live for gardening, right?
Yes. Okay.
So, and then you just add a special character, make sure the capitals, and I play around where the capitals are. Sometimes they're not even at the beginning of a word,
So do you think that you should have a different password for like Facebook than you do for Microsoft?
I think that each password should be different. You shouldn't use a one-to-many password.
Okay.
Because think about it, if they actually do hack that 1 password, and a lot of these sites, you don't have control over a password policy as well. So if you use the same password on every site across the board, and then Facebook didn't have a good authentication scheme, I'm just going to use Facebook, but this isn't anything against Facebook, and Facebook will lock your account out after so many failed attempts. But let's say ABC application will take your password forever. Well, they'll hack you there, right? And then once they see that, then they'll figure out, oh, these are all the other places this guy goes, and then they'll start trying that same password in all these other places. Oh yeah, we got into his bank. Let's transfer $10,000 out of his bank, right?
Yeah.
Banking passwords or any financial passwords should definitely be separate. And I recommend over 20 characters for those, right?
Wow.
Right.
Okay. So according to your chart, that would take 1,000,000 years to crack.
Yeah, well, 1,000,000 years unless your computer's compromised and I put a keylogger on it too. So
Yeah.
really makes a difference on how they hacked it, right?
Well, so what about all these banking apps on the phone? Are those secure? And
Well, really, they're only as secure as the vendor that's putting those apps out, right? So we don't know, right? I
okay.
couldn't tell you whether this bank has a secure app or that bank has a secure app. And what could be secure today could have a 0-day vulnerability tomorrow. But knowing that we're not going to stop doing business on our phones, we all do business on our phones. Just make it as complex as possible. And the other thing that I personally do is none of my business banking account information is accessible. So I do read-only access for 99.9% of my business account information. I have one account that I can log in and do financial transactions on. And this is why, because your business account is not protected by insurance like your personal account is. So every dollar in your business account could be stolen and the bank has no obligation to give it back to you. Whereas your personal account, the bank has a federal obligation to give it back to you.
Oh, wow. Wow. Okay. That's good to know. And just one more thing about that. Should you not like access your banking app in certain locations like Starbucks or, over your cell reception, could you be on your business Wi-Fi or your personal, your home Wi-Fi with that?
So you shouldn't join a guest Wi-Fi and do any work on your phone
Okay.
without a VPN in place. And this is why, because you could connect, and I'll give you a good example of this. We had a client that went to Italy, connected to a hotel Wi-Fi. However, it wasn't a hotel Wi-Fi, it was a hacker's Wi-Fi. His computer got hacked. Long story short, the FBI got involved, the Secret Service got involved, because they wanted to know about that particular hack. So really, you could be joining a wireless network that you think is secure. Oh yeah, this is a reputable hotel, but hackers put up a Wi-Fi access point and you didn't even know about it.
Wow. Okay. Speaking of remote, how do you is it possible? You mentioned VPN. Is it a VPN that makes it possible to secure your, access to your business network, even though you are remote?
VPN is one of the methods. Also a secure password policy, good antivirus, anti-malware, great firewall. So it's a whole package. There's no, like I said before, there's no one thing we can do. It's really putting all the right puzzle pieces into the right slots to make sure that you're as protected as you can be.
Okay. Okay. So, another thing that a lot of people ask me about because they don't instantly get it, they don't understand, and that is having a strong cybersecurity attitude or having the correct attitude for cybersecurity. And that's, for me, it's a little complex to explain. How do you explain it? What would you say?
Well, I think with anything in business, it's all about leadership, right? And what tone do we set at our company, right? Do we set the lax security tone, right? Do we not care about it, right? Does leadership not care about it? And if leadership doesn't care about it, the employees don't care about it. And considering that 80% of the threat is the end user, right? Because of mistakes, because of things they click and stuff like that, I think that it's incumbent on a business leader to set the policy that we take cybersecurity policy very serious and that we invest and do the things necessary to make sure we're protected, right? And just that attitude alone and seeing it in play in companies makes all the difference, right? When employees are starting to approach us and say, hey, is this safe to click? We want to make sure. Those companies usually aren't the ones that get compromised because their employees are engaged in the cybersecurity. But it really takes a good leader to engage their employees in cybersecurity. It's not just, a one-time security training, it's constant reminders. Hey, don't forget to be secure. Maybe we put little stickers on the monitors. We send out cybersecurity tips. It's all of the things that come into culmination that gets the employee to think about cybersecurity. You want cybersecurity on the top of my mind. If they accidentally click something and think it was hokey, you want them to pick up the phone immediately and call the help desk and say, hey, I think I've made a mistake. You don't want them to say, oh, I don't want to let anybody know because, I might be fired. You want them to have the cybersecurity attitude. Hey, I might have made a mistake. They tricked me. Let's get this remediated.
Okay, I never thought of it like that. So you're saying that the part of the attitude is really like being willing to admit that you've made a mistake or you don't know something, and being willing to reach out, with questions.
Yes, exactly. Because if you can make it in an environment where they can admit they made a mistake and they feel good about rectifying that mistake, 99.9% of the time, that's the difference between whether you're paying ransomware or not.
Wow. Okay. And is it true that if an employee clicks like one bad link and submits data into a bad form, that's all it takes?
Mike, you don't even need to submit information in some cases.
Wow.
Some cases you could be on a website, click a link, and all of a sudden your computer's compromised, right? It is that easy, right? It could be an injection into a web form that's on your website that injects code to tell that database to do something different than it would normally do. It's in today's day and age, the compromise could be so simple. And often the hackers will get onto the systems and you won't even know it for 3 to 6 months, right?
Wow.
If you don't have the tools in place to detect the activities, like the AI antivirus, and we use another product called Huntress, which looks for hacker footholds and hacker tools. If you don't have tools like that in place, they could be on there forever until they decide to implement the ransomware, and that's what they're doing today. They're sitting on people's systems, waiting, capturing social security numbers, credit cards, date of births, people's names, addresses, invoices, email communications. And once they feel like they've gotten all that information, they'll do one of two things, right? They'll either sell the access to that network off to another hacker that has some more nefarious purposes, right? Or they'll start selling off that data that they collected and then ransomware you to get another payment. So they'll make tens of thousands of dollars off the credit cards, social security numbers, people's information, the emails they've scraped, and any other access they've gotten through the time. Because don't forget, they're not just targeting you. Now they're targeting everybody you email, everybody you communicate with. So they'll create custom campaigns against those people, and you'll be the source of that attack because you were compromised first.
Wow. Okay. So yeah, basically I heard that one of the things they love to do is to sell all your information to the dark web. And I found out that you could buy a Netflix account for $1. Like it may only last a month before they figure it out, but $1, you know what I mean? That's crazy. And so one of the things you said got me, because how do they know other hackers that they can sell network access to? So like, let's say they've stripped all the data from your network. They've sold all the information they can to the dark web. Now they're going to reach out to another hacker and sell that access to them. How does that work?
So what's going to happen, Mike, is that they're going to post, I have these networks available that have already been breached, and they'll sell that access off. They'll get cryptocurrency from another hacker, and then they'll send them the links on how to get in, what tools to use, and the usernames and passwords that they've created. And then now all of a sudden, this other hacker has information. The hackers are really doing something called hacking as a service. So I'll develop, REvil's known for this. They develop a whole tool set, and they'll give you the tool set. And what the deal is between these hackers is, you've given me this tool set. I use it to compromise 15 networks, right? Reevil then collects money from some of those ransomware attacks, or collects money from the sold credentials, and then gives me my cut, right? So what they're doing is they're creating entrepreneurs out of people, and they make the tools so simple that children can use them, right?
Wow.
So it's so easy. You don't need to have an IT career. If you go onto YouTube and watch some of these hacker call centers in India, right? These guys aren't bright, right? They know nothing about hacking, but they know what they've been told and they know what they've been taught, right? And they've been trained on how to use a tool. And once they use a tool, they know how to collect payments.
So this is like a business opportunity.
Oh, I'll tell you what, if it wasn't illegal, I'd be the first one in line to do this, because it can make gazillions of dollars, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, one good exposure. Look at the pipeline, $2.2 million ransom, right? You look at some of the school systems, look at some of the police departments, tens of thousands of dollars, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, right? And you know what? They'll negotiate with you, right? So, you've been ransomwared and you don't have access to your data anymore, but you can't afford the 2 million. Well, I can't afford 2 million. Can you take $250,000? Oh, sure, I'll take $250,000, right?
Yeah.
So they don't care. Like it's just business to them. It's all about, all they see in you is dollar signs.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, and I've heard some small businesses, have paid from $40,000 to $400,000, ransoms. So everything that we talked about seems to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems to me like this is like the the plan A, right? But there has to be a plan B, which is usually business continuity and disaster recovery. Is that a correct assessment? And what do you use business continuity and disaster recovery?
That is an awesome question, because plan A is not definitive, right? The hackers are creating new ways to compromise businesses every day. And the thing is that it's not if, but when you will be compromised. In your lifetime, there's a good chance that you will be compromised, or the company you work for will be compromised. You'll be involved in a compromise some way. Some data you'll have on some website won't be available anymore because they were compromised. You will be compromised in some way from a personal standpoint, and businesses will be compromised until we find a way to take back, the internet from these hackers and make it so that they can't survive. They run pretty much carte blanche, right? The invent of cryptocurrency was like a license for them to steal. However, so that's why we always have to have a plan B, right? So we have to talk about recoverability, right? If you were to get ransomware, how do we make sure that you're recoverable? And that's where a backup and disaster recovery and business continuity plan comes in place. Is you want to have a rock solid way. You want to make sure that the hackers cannot destroy your way to recover. And you want several options to be able to recover. The business continuity and backup and disaster recovery plan that we sell, we use a product called Dado, best in the industry by far. Like, I'll tell you, before Dado, I used to wake up at night when we ever had a server emergency or malware or whatever. I'd wake up at night and say, are we covered? Check the tapes, check the whatever backup we were using. And I'd be sweating bullets for an hour waiting to see if we were 100% recoverable and all of that. Since Dado, I can sleep at night because I know that we check those backups daily. They spin up in the background into a fully virtual machine, take a screenshot picture. We know they're bootable, right? Second to none support with Dado. And so they back up locally to an appliance. Then every night they replicate off to a data center. That data center is on a 30-day no delete policy. So even if you deleted the data resides on that server for 30 days. And then it spins off to a second data center. And that second data center is on a 60-day no delete policy. And what that does is it gives you recoverability, right? So even if they got today's backups and they got the appliance on site and they were able to wipe those out, you still have the last 30 days of backups, right? So we would be able to recover it to a prior point in time that wasn't very painful to recover from, or minimally painful to recover from. Yeah, you might have to enter a few invoices or a day or two's worth of information, but 99.9% recoverable, right? And get you back up and running. We vet the backups, make sure that there's no tools or malware in those backups, and then we just spin them up either virtually in the cloud, or we get data to send us a device and we spin them up locally into the facility. And we can even spin them up in the cloud temporarily until we can get you back up and running in the facility. So,
Wow. Okay. So everything you do on the front end is designed to prevent hackers as much as possible, but they could still get through potentially. And if they do, that's when your business continuity, backup, and disaster recovery plan comes into place.
yes, and I'm going to tell you this: if anybody ever makes you 100% guaranteed that hackers can't hack you, I would run away, speed away, drive away, get as far away from that person as possible, because there's nobody on this earth, not even the CIA or the National Security Agency, they've been hacked. And if they've been hacked, and the amount of money they spend in security to make sure they're protected, it's just not possible. So yes, that we put all of those plans in place because there's no 100% guarantee that you'll be 100% secure and you'll never be hacked. There's things we can do to remove you from the low-hanging fruit list, right? Because the hackers are going to take the easiest route. So if they find these 15 networks that were really easy to hack and they're still working on yours, well, they might be working on yours for a long time, right? But they're going to focus their energy on where they can make the quick payday, right? It's sort of like you in business, you're going to make the sales that are quick and easy. You might still work on that sale that's going to take you a year to close, but you're going to really be putting most of your energy on the 15 or 20 that you can sell today and tomorrow.
Right. Okay. So essentially, the way to protect yourself then is by, doing everything you can to keep them out. But if they do access your data and they do, get in, protection is being able to restore everything as fast as possible. Correct.
Well, I don't think protection is. I think recoverability and business survivability, right?
Okay.
The problem is that most businesses, especially small to medium businesses, that the lag time between attack and recovery makes all the difference of whether the company survives, right? We've seen companies 6, 8, 10 weeks out and still working on recovery because they won't pay the ransomware, but the data is not recoverable, right? How do you recover from that? Do you get your vendors and your customers to send you all the paperwork back so you re-enter it and recreate all of that data? And if you do pay the ransom, you're more likely to get ransomware again, right? Because now they know you're a paying target, right? Or they might not even you might make the payment and they might not give you the recovery keys as well. So it's all of those little scenarios. And so you want as much insurance as possible. And I think a backup disaster recovery plan with business continuity is probably worth more than your cybersecurity insurance policy. I would say do the backup and disaster recovery plan before you pay for cybersecurity, because the cyber insurance, yeah, it'll help you if you get attacked, pay me to recover you, right? But it's not going to get your data back, right? So, let's focus on the things that are going to keep you up and running or get you back up and running as quickly as possible.
Right. Okay. Well, that's a great place to stop. Basically, I think we've covered everything that a business owner needs to know in order to kind of identify where they might be missing. Like, are your passwords secure? If you have people connecting in remotely, are they protected? Other things like, do you have antivirus? And the next gen antivirus would be ideal. And also, are you training your employees, to protect you from phishing attacks so that they're not clicking any links that could compromise your network. So, and then finally, if you are hacked, like you just said, Bob, which I didn't even think about. Yes, the cybersecurity insurance will help pay for an IT person to get your data back, but they can't get things that don't exist back, right? It has to be there. That's why the business continuity and disaster recovery product or service offering is absolutely necessary.
I agree. And, my goal here is to make sure that you guys never have to pay the ransom, right? I mean, think about fighting hackers is a patriotic thing in this country. And this is why that is, because it's the #1 threat against the United States. And it's a higher threat than World War II or World War III, because World War III is going to have a cyber component, right? Other governments are already trying to hack us to take our ability, take our electric grid away from us. Imagine if the whole country went black all of a sudden and remain that way for 60, 90, 120 days, right? So really, it's a patriotic thing is that every American should be doing what they can do to prevent hackers from gaining any access to anything. And that's my goal, is to make sure you guys never have to pay the ransom by educating you, giving you the information, giving you the tools to do what you need to do to make sure that you and your organization are protected, and your family, right? Make sure your family is protected as well.
Excellent. Well, thanks, Bob. I really appreciate this. And thanks everyone for joining us. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us at Attain Technology. And until next time, take care of yourself and be safe.
Have a great day, everybody, and stay safe and never pay the ransom.
Exactly.